hockey game tonight, too.
Good evening, Littleton. Welcome to the Select Board meeting for Monday, June 24th, 2024. We're going to begin with an executive session of approximately 15 minutes or so, and then go back in open session. So,
Ready? Move that the Select Board vote to enter into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, police union, and return to open session thereafter.
Second.
moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. Roll call vote. Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mr. Dickos? Mr. Nordhaus?
Aye.
Ms. Morrison?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. We'll be in executive session and hopefully back in 15. Thank you.
We didn't. Did we talk about Park and Rec at all? About that? That's what we're going to hold off on. Okay.
Just make it.
You talk about the MOU or you talk about the other?
Sorry, I never get back to it. I actually intended on coming by last Sunday.
Oh,
Jamie's thing. I apologize.
no worries.
Appreciate the offer.
Of course.
The invitation.
Yeah, no, you did get back to me.
Did I?
You're like, doesn't look good, which, yeah,
Did I?
you did. Cross my heart.
Just so you know, we can't hear Evan, so we were told to sit in the front, although we don't want to do that.
What?
So we can hear you.
We heard you out in the hallway.
Well, we had a front, a whole round of listen here.
What are you guys doing here? What are you bringing in?
They're here for you, I think.
I'll hear from Matthias.
Mr. Nordhaus, hands up against the wall, please.
What did my son do?
Yeah.
You're very popular.
This is a full house.
Yep.
We think.
Okay, we're going to start with a Pledge of Allegiance.
Starting with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And before we get into the agenda, I'd like to have two veterans from Littleton, David Whitcomb and Roger LeBlanc, have passed away in the past few weeks, and I'd like to have a moment of silence for them if we could. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So we have a fairly light agenda. We're going to read mail. Matthias wants to present an Eagle Scout project. We have department updates, recognition of the police department, and naming of the new senior center. At 7 o'clock, we should have public input, members update. We have a licensing to vote for a one-day liquor license for Millward Brewing. Then select board discussions on the HCA's for the marijuana establishments in town. Board appointments, Nagog Orchard discussion, the taking of the Webster property, town hall hours for July 5th, minutes approval, and then adjournment at 8 o'clock.
Exactly 8 o'clock.
Exactly 8 o'clock. So we'll start with the mail.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just sign up please, everyone sign up to receive public notifications for the town of Littleton, www.littletonma.org/subscribe, community impacts, transportation issues, public health concerns, public safety activity, town meeting changes, town events. So stay informed. Also have a letter to the chairman from the Littleton LELWD, and the purpose of the letter is that provides notification regarding LELWD right-of-way herbicide application program. Select herbicides may include Roundup Pro, EPA, and aquatic herbicide. It's affected, application is affected areas will take place between approximate date of July 2nd and November 1st. Application activities will begin in select right-of-ways in Littleton and Boxborough to help control poison ivy and other nuisance and hazard vegetation species. This has also been approved by the Department of Agriculture of Massachusetts, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and they are in approval of that also. There is all of these still?
We still have a lot, we just, so there's a lot of openings. Look on the town website for the openings. Look after today, because there'll be fewer after the appointments later today.
Fantastic. And that is it.
Okay, next up, Eagle Scout project.
I'm assuming I'm right here. Yeah. All right. So, hello. My name is Matthias LaCroix. I'm a Life Scout in Troop 20 Littleton. And I met with 3 members of the town of Littleton, Mr. Rombacher, Mr. Duggan, town administrator, and that lady right over there that I think I can Liz. About my Eagle Scout project. So, I reached out to Mr. Duggan about a few weeks ago to talk about possibly installing a mini food pantry box at either the new senior center or at the town offices, wherever would be most convenient. You guys might have printed them out already, but I have little one sheets if you guys need something. And you can ignore that. Thank you. So, I'm sure some of you are wondering what a little mini food pantry box is. If you've ever seen a mini library or a little library, you'll know it's essentially the same concept. You take food if you need some extra. You leave some if you have some extra. It's supported a lot by the community, and the people in charge of maintaining it basically just keep a food supply in case it runs a little low, make sure it's in good condition throughout the year. And I decided on this for my Eagle Scout project because I made one for my local church, which is in South Acton, right by the train station. And I made one, and I saw just how much of an effect it had on the local community in fighting food insecurity, which you wouldn't realize for Acton with how much of a upper middle class town it is, but a lot of people really struggle with food insecurity. And we heard a lot of people come forward to, with just stories to tell to the people at church about like just how much it impacted them. So I saw how important of a mission kind of this was. So I decided to do that times 4, because it's 4 times the outreach, I guess. So one, as you can see with the pictures up there, in the bottom left, I installed for Cornerstone Church, which is in Westford. The middle right picture is the second one that I installed for Congregation Beth Elohim, which is also in Acton. And I have 2 more. One I wanted to give to my school, the Parker Charter School in Devens, and the other I would want you guys to have, if you would so kindly take it. So I met with, as I said, those 3 people from the select board last Tuesday about the possibility of you taking a food pantry box. I went over what was necessary, things to keep in mind for what the responsibilities were, helpful information, the other parts of my Eagle Scout project, such as the fact that I've done a food drive, so that the boxes basically have a starting supply of food, and you're not starting with an empty box. And I did a food drive over Memorial Day weekend and ended up raising over like 700 pounds of food and something like $500 in donations. So, big impact there. That's most of it. I'm not sure.
Where are you going to put it?
We were thinking of talking to you before, and I'm
Liz.
I was wondering if it was Liz. Okay, yeah. Sorry. I was talking to Liz before. What we'd speculated is that a possible place that would work pretty well is right by the multi-purpose room in front of the fence there. There was like 3 sections, and on one side there's a bench, and the other side's pretty clear. It has a lot of parking spaces right in front of it. One of the things about the mini food pantry box, I know a lot of people in need of help often, don't want to be seen as needing help, and so it's a great place for, if they need anonymity and don't want to be in like the public eye right on the main street. It's really out of the way. They can park like down the street and walk and just grab some food. It's easily stalkable since it's right on the premises of the Littleton town offices. And coincidentally enough, it's right by where the old Troop Hall used to be, so I'm very familiar with the area. I think that's most of it. We talked about installing sometime in the next week or so. I'm really readily available to install whenever is most convenient. I have a team of volunteers I can talk to and call on, and we can get it in the ground tomorrow if need be. So
Just gotta, you have to call up Mr. Clyde and he'll have it in, right?
he was the person, as you can see in the top 2 pictures, he was the person that was the MVP of our install team.
I hope he didn't use an excavator to put those in.
We actually didn't. He was enough.
He's his own excavator.
He was. He rolled up in his truck. We got both the boxes in about 3 hours, including travel time between the two. Funny thing, he actually looked at the install location for Congregation Beth Elohim, which the only thing that people have to do before we install is called dig safe, just so we don't run into like a pipe or a gas line or something like that. He took one look at the spot and said, "Hey, I noticed there's a patch over here of grass that's growing differently because it has a divot in it, so I know that's where the guys push the snow." And I said, "What do you mean? You know that? How can you tell?" So he said, "Can we move it a few feet to the right?" And they said, "We defer to you." And I said, "I defer to him, so let's move it a few feet to the right." So he's a great resource that I have. But yeah, I have a lot of volunteers, just like Mr. Clyde, willing, eager, ready to help out, reliable. So whatever you guys need, we can get it done.
Any comments?
No, this is fantastic. I would just say, when you're going to put it in, maybe just let Jim know, so if one of us are available, is to come down and whatever help's needed, or, yeah, just to kind of kick it off. It's great.
Yeah.
So thank you. This is a fantastic job. Thanks for thinking of us, too, in Littleton. So.
No problem. Reach out to a lot of places, so I'm glad I finally got a few that will take them.
I love the level of detail you went into, Matthias, with even just guiding people what types of products to put in, easy opening cans, just that kind of level of detail shows that you truly were invested in this project, and hats off to you. Thank you very much.
Hi, Matthias.
Hi.
I know when I was involved with Littleton Community Farm that food insecurity in Littleton is a real problem, even though it doesn't seem like the kind of place it would be. There were a lot of people who took advantage of the food that was available there for free. And so I applaud you for doing this. I think it's going to be a very valuable thing. And thank you.
Hi, Matthias.
Hi.
This
Funny,
is a
I
great
know a lot of
project.
people on this board.
You do. Well-connected young man. So, yeah, I mean, what everybody else said, this is a great project. Thanks for thinking of us, and, full support. So, appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree this is a great project, and we actually, when we were meeting with them before, we asked if we could get more, so. And we talked about potentially doing more outside of your Eagle Scout project when you have spare time in your senior year.
He was actually very nice on how we refused that.
Yes.
I've got all the measurements to give to you, and you can.
Yes.
Well,
Very smooth way of saying no.
I would really like to help you. I just really want to get done with my Eagle Scout project because,
Fair enough.
goodness, it's been 2 years and quite a lot of headaches. And like 5 more Eagle Scout project is really not in the budget for 9 months.
So, look for a motion?
Do we need a motion?
It'd be nice.
Move that we approve the location as proposed for Matthias LaCroix's Eagle Scout project to install a mini food pantry in front of the multipurpose room at Shattuck Street.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Matthias.
Thank you.
Next up, the Police Department recognition of the Trilogy Award.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me 5 minutes off your agenda tonight to recognize the police department in an award that Deputy Chief Patterson and myself committed to 6 years ago to make sure that we were able to receive this award. The Trilogy Award for the agency is for the entire command staff to have completed the actual trilogy of the FBI. The trilogy is 3 different steps. It's a Supervisor Leadership Institute, which is a 40-hour class, Command Leadership Institute, another 40-hour class, and then the Executive Leadership Institute, which is the highest level of the classes. Once you have the entire command staff completed through all of the trilogy, then you'll be able to receive your agency award. There's only 144 cities and towns, agencies, across the country that have received this award. We are one of the 144. And out of that 144, there's only 11 other departments in Massachusetts that received it, and we're one of the 11. So I know it's just a plaque on the wall, but it's a huge accomplishment for our department and for our community to know we have such strong, educated leaders. So thank you again for 5 minutes tonight. I'd like to have a picture with some of the officers and you guys if you could.
I just want to thank you for making education and training a priority for the department. I think it makes a huge difference, and it's an incredible benefit to our community, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I appreciate everybody in your department who invests in their own education and their own training to further their career, but also just to improve the department.
Thank you
It's
very
huge.
much, Mr. Norris.
Yeah, I'll echo what Matthew said, and also just say thank you for the commitment, dedication, and passion that you and the department show toward your profession and towards our community. It's I was saying a bit earlier that we're fortunate. We have a very professional, cohesive, committed department, and that goes top down and bottom up. And appreciate leadership and taking the time to invest your own time to make this happen. And also what Matthew said relative to everybody's development and growth. Thank you.
Yeah, just thank you. And these things don't just happen. I know that, so.
It's been a working project. 6 years, the deputy and I committed that we wanted to make sure that we were able to receive this award, and we finally were able to follow through the whole way with having all of our command staff attend all 3 classes. So
Congratulations on the award and
Thank
all
you.
the hard work. What's next?
I don't know. We'll see.
What have you done for me lately?
Okay. You want a picture?
Yeah, I'd love one with all the officers.
See, I told you.
Good stuff.
Gary.
So moving on, the naming of the new senior center.
What?
It's going to be named the Wilson Aquatic Center.
Right behind it.
That was my joke last week.
It was worth it.
Come back to that.
Bikini.
You were missing. Sorry.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi, Liz Trudiak, Director of Elder and Human Services, and I am here for our second round of discussion on the naming of our new building. As you'll see in the packet, the COA board recommended to name the building the Center on Shattuck Street. We're presenting that to you for your approval. We think that this name is versatile, it's all-inclusive of all of the services that are inside the building: Elder and Human Services, Council on Aging, the Senior Center, and Veteran Services. We envision it being the Center on Shattuck Street, home of Elder and Human Services, Council on Aging, or Senior Center, and Veterans Services, in some combination of those words. So just presenting that again here tonight to see if we can make a decision.
So just to be, we talked about this 2 meetings ago, and the policy said we couldn't decide it at that last meeting. So we are hopefully deciding at this meeting. Just to be clear, why was the Wilson Aquatic Center ruled out?
Oh, see, here we go again.
We don't have any aquatics
Oh.
donations as of yet.
It's a little pool.
You had to cut the pool.
Yeah, for the right donation, it'll become the Wilson Aquatic Center.
I'm in favor. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah.
I think it's a great name.
Okay.
I appreciate the amount of input that you've taken and made it a collaborative decision.
Yep.
Signed the beam this week too, so it's fine.
That's right.
Move that
Got a
the
sharp
select
end.
board vote to name the new senior center the Center on Shattuck Street as recommended by the Council on Aging.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Gary. All those in favor?
Aye.
So-
Yeah.
Liz,
It's getting.
before you leave, you want to talk about the beam signing?
Sure, yes.
Popping out.
This Thursday, the 27th, at 11 a.m., we'll be holding a beam signing right out here outside the library. The beam is currently out there with the town's logos and our logos, Commodore and Vertex on it. It's painted white. We're going to be putting out Sharpies in the morning. Anyone can sign their name to be part of this momentous occasion. And then on Thursday morning at 11, we'll be doing the ceremony, hoisting it up, and doing the topping off of the final beam of the project. So we hope members of the public can join us. We'll have some food, 11 to 1. We'll see you there.
Yep.
And they can come and sign the beam anytime before Thursday?
Anytime before Thursday morning.
Okay, thank you.
Where is the beam going to be located? Is it going to be visible from inside?
No,
It's
not
right outside
eventually.
the building, this building to the left.
No, I mean,
When it's installed?
Once it's
there's
installed,
one in
once
here
it's
you can't see.
installed, no, then it's inside the building.
Yeah.
Ceremonial more than anything.
Yeah, it's right.
It's like a
right.
cornerstone.
There's one in this building as well that we all signed, most of us signed, that's
Okay.
unfortunately not visible.
Yeah, it's an ironworkers
Tradition.
tradition. Yeah, they put a flag on one end, a tree on the other,
Yeah.
hoist it up. Yeah,
That's cool.
Yeah,
Select board stands on the beam while it's being hoisted. It's a fun event.
that's optional.
Spin it.
The public gets to choose which select board member.
No, they
Put that one where it is,
They
Liz.
just get to choose which ones are on the end.
Which end?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz. Thank you, guys.
A lot of work.
Stuff, COA.
Members update. Lead us off, Gary?
That's all you have to remember. Yeah, what was I was actually going to talk about the beam signing this week, so just a reminder. But I attended the carnival yesterday, waited to the last day. It seemed to be the day that we had the most time to go to the carnival without rain. But a great event. My understanding is it sounds like the Rotary is going to have it a couple times a year. It seemed like they were trying to get it at least once a year, but they were talking about potentially twice a year. I think we couldn't have had worse weather for the 4 days. It was like every evening we the thunderstorms popped up and it was wet, but it's out there now, people are aware of it, and I think every time we do it, it'll just get more and more. But it was a fantastic job by the Rotary. A lot of work went into it, I know, to make that happen. Oddly enough, where it was placed, you really couldn't see it from King Street, and it made me think about the buildings that are potentially going to go in there. How when those things are set back, it's very difficult to see.
But up at the cinema, you could see that
Yeah, the
Ferris
Ferris
wheel.
wheel.
Like, I was like, what is
Right?
that?
I know.
Yeah.
So that, no, it's a great event, and I know a lot of people put a lot of work in to make that happen. So, in that same vein, I know we're wearing these buttons. The Appleman Triathlon is the 21st.
21st
July. So, yeah, next month. So, just another great event that Littleton puts on. This is the 20th, where we're all wearing the buttons. So please come out, participate, volunteer, whatever you can do to make that event as spectacular as it always is. So, thank you.
Well, my big thunder was the Appleman, but thanks, Gary. But there are opportunities other than participating in the triathlon or volunteering in the triathlon. There's also sponsorship opportunities. So you can either reach out to your favorite Rotary member, or you can reach out. I'm happy to take any calls or emails if anybody's interested in any type of sponsorship of the event. Rotary is a really important part of our community, and they do a lot. They give a lot back, and the Appleman is a huge fundraiser for them. The carnival now is also going to be a pretty significant fundraiser, and a lot of organizations that have been in need have leaned into Rotary, and Rotary's always been there and answered the call. So, hats off to Chris Halpin and Cheryl Cowley, Denise Moniz, and I shouldn't start naming names because I'm going to leave out a whole bunch of people, so I'll stop there. But the entire Rotary community, actually, our town administrator is a member of Rotary. I don't know how much work he did on this one, but he's going to do a lot in the Appleman. Something
I am.
It's going to be in a bathing suit on the long
No, I am not.
Swimming pool.
No, I am not.
But thanks to all the members and for all those that came out and participated at the carnival.
I held office hours on Friday, so thanks to everyone who came by. I wanted to thank the Neshoba Praying Indians for welcoming us to the Strawberry Moon celebration on Saturday. I was able to attend for part of the celebration, and it was fantastic. I also attended the fair on Saturday, and the kids gave it 2 thumbs up. And so thanks to Rotary for that, and also thank you to Rotary for, I know that they held their Youth Leadership Awards over the weekend at Fitchburg State, that they sponsored several Littleton High School students, and that's a huge undertaking, and it's has a big impact on the kids and on the community, so thank you for that. And I wasn't sure if I remembered to talk about the Shade Tree Committee, providing the planning board with a proposed policy for the replacement of town trees at 95 Taylor, and that was accepted by the planning board. And so that's my Shade Tree Committee liaison update.
That's great.
I think everything I was going to talk about has been covered by other people, so thank you. That was my brief update.
So thank you to Rotary for all they've done for the carnival and everything else. I also went to Senator Eldridge, held his Green Advisory Committee meeting on Saturday. There was a presentation about the electric grid and where stations and power plants and things are being cited going forward. And he talked about the Senate just passed a bill banning plastic bags statewide and a couple other things, so stay tuned on that. And that's pretty much all I have. So, public input.
Need to get him a walk-up song.
Yeah.
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. Mr. Chairman, on the Disability Commission, we asked you about the money of the $35,000 we was asking to do the survey for the town. Of course, we've been working very hard to find out exactly what we need to tell you in that letter. There's a letter that Diane, if she hadn't sent it to you yet, tells you that I was able to find out that the town does not have to come up with the $35,000. The state will pay for the thing entirely. All we have to do is submit the plan, and I have the information for what 3 areas out of the 5 that we need to submit to the state. And I believe there's a RPF that we will have to go out and ask the consultant what they would charge to do this for the town. And I believe we have to enclose that as a copy of that. We missed this year. They opened it up on the 1st of May, and they closed out on June the 12th. So it will open up again, projected May the 1st of 2520, and close again in June. So we're going to make sure that we have everything in place and send it up to the MOD for them to check it out and make sure that we'll have no problem when we submit it. So that's in the plan. So that $35,000, y'all can forget about it. You don't have to worry about it. So I was able to find that out. However, Diane is going to be sending you a request for $3,500. And I would hope that y'all will give her the $3,500 because she needs that to put a monitor in over there so the town clerk and the moderator can read the results from voting over there. And I talked to Mark Gorey, and he said that a 27-inch monitor with a stand is what they're going to need. So I will hope that my hard work of saving this town $35,000, that you'll give her $3,500 to go out and buy a monitor. It's not this big, Mark said, but go out and buy a monitor. Whatever the best quality between IT and Mark is going to determine what's the best unit to get. So I would certainly appreciate you putting support in that and helping that. And she's going to be sending a letter to you, to Mr. Dugan, and to FinCom.
Thank you.
I thank you.
Actually, Mr. Sanders, if I may, do you know on the $35,000, that's not reimbursable by the state?
You
It's
do not
100%.
have to come
Perfect.
up with any money at all.
Okay.
They're going to pay for it 100%.
They're just kind of sneaky about that sometimes.
But I think this is a change compared to before.
Okay.
That you had to come up with some matching funding.
Right.
But now you do not have to come
Good.
in with it, and they have the money there.
Excellent.
And through the chair, I know it wasn't heavily applied for by communities in the state, where I think it's 2027, this is going to be a mandate.
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
Right, so,
We're ahead of the curve.
well, we could have been really way ahead, but I think if we jump on this for next year's cycle, we'll hopefully, we'll still be ahead of it, and we'll be in a situation where by the time it's enforced, so to speak, we'll already be well on our way, and the study will be done, and we can be working our way towards making
Yeah,
some changes.
that's what we're definitely hoping. So I told Diane, I went in and sort of kind of did a recapitulation of the areas that they spoke of, and I probably put that down in our disability commission rather. We're going to put on the agenda some designated time that we can work to put this together, and then we're going to send it up to Mr. Dugan at the state and have him to review it and let us know if we need to make any changes or whatever the case is. So when we do submit it, we know that it'll go through. So he sort of kind of assured me, you don't have to worry about it. You get it in, you'll get the money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So when that comes around, we should make sure we have someone that can help do the grant, because I know from doing the one-stop grant application for the Affordable Housing Trust, they're not easy to do if you don't know what you're doing, so.
Right, and that's one of the priorities that we're making for the facilities director, that whoever he or she is going to, that's going to be one of the first things out of the gate that they're going to be assigned to do.
Anita Harding, 19 Russell Street, Littleton. On Saturday, I was rather disappointed to go to Fay Park and see such a small turnout for the Cultural and Historical Committee doing the Indian powwow. I couldn't even find a sign anywhere in Littleton or on Foster Street or anything advertising that the powwow was taking place. My daughter-in-law is Cherokee and Micmac, and we've been to powwows and we've seen how important the culture and the way the Indians celebrate the veterans and everyone else. And I think it's important for Littleton and citizens to follow that culture. I did see Karen there, and I was there for a short period of time. The weather wasn't great, but it wasn't even advertised. I didn't really find out about it until 9 o'clock Friday night. I got a call from a member of the Historical Society. So it was a shame, and I think it should be done over again and really advertised, because it was a very poor turnout.
So just to address that, I believe that was their choice not to advertise it.
It was what?
It was their choice not to advertise it. This was like a practice run for them. They were planning a bigger event for next year. It was more of a
Soft opening.
soft opening. So,
Oh, okay, well, that's good, good to hear, and hopefully next year it will be well advertised.
yes,
Okay.
I know in the past they've done powwows that have been quite substantial in
Well
size.
attended.
Yeah.
Like in 2017 or 2018, they did one that was like a
If
third
you've never
Thursday.
been to the religious part of a powwow, you really should go. It's important.
yes.
Rob Rounds, 25 Juniper Road. I've seen many of you at the Financial Policies Working Group discussion. I come away thinking maybe that title and name is required as by statute or something, but that seems more like a roadmap with regard to how the town's monies are accumulated and spent. And it seems like, well, I was a finance guy in my career. It's different than finance policies that I had. So I just encourage you, because I think you might get more participation. In terms of participation, I agree with Anita, Karen, it was a great event. They did some real nice things at that event. The working policies, I think we're very, very fortunate to have Fred and Steve. I know a number of you, certainly Ryan, there's a lot of participation. It's a lot of good stuff that's done there. I feel very, very good hearing what takes place there. Along the way, I came across the pilot program. That's a specific policy that's mentioned there. I just wonder if there's a way, because it talks about case by case, whether you guys can be creative and expansive and push the boundaries if needed with regard to the orchard. Because it seems like that's a thorny issue with regard to some of the working group members, and if there's a way to make that happen and solve that issue, I think, or help with that issue, I think that'd be helpful. I'm curious later on if you got a response back from MAPC with regard to a public meeting. I think the working group's meeting this week, and I hope that they have a response coming with regard to getting on with that part. Thanks with regard to a lot of good things happening in the Long Lake neighborhood area. The ADA compliant walkway on Long Lake Beach, really terrific. I mean, I every time I'm there, somebody's talking about how good it is and how great it is, and really, really terrific. The other thing that many of you may have seen was there was a huge dumpster finally came, and conservation finally got it. It wasn't their issue. It was difficulty getting permits to get all this stuff out, but it was 22.5 by 7.5 by like about 4.5 feet, and we filled it up. Problem is we could fill it up several more times easily just in that immediate area. But thanks to Park and Rec Conservation, LLNA, getting a lot of people out there on April 20th and getting that done. Another positive thing that Jim announced, I know the work's about to be done, but thank the police chief, Steve Yonley, the highway department, everybody, Mark. I don't know all the people involved. I just know some of the safety issues that I know I've spoken to some of you about. They're on the verge of being addressed. The public's really happy about it. Word's kind of getting around the street and really positive about that. Lastly, I know you've all been invited to pontoon boat ride on Spec Pond. I just did it last week. It's eye-opening. I mean, if you want to see fan work, basically wall to wall in that lake, now's the time to go before any, treatment is done. And I think you'd be shocked as to how pervasive and problematic that vegetation is. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to update on anyone else? The projects, is there any updates on?
I will have something for Nagog when we get to Nagog.
Okay.
Shaker Lane, no?
Yeah, Shaker Lane, we are currently working, the committee's currently working with our new designer, Studio G, to particularly look at the feasibility of Wickham Field and other alternative sites in town. You should ask the board if they have any other thoughts about looking, this is the window of time when they're looking at alternative sites. So if there are any locations that you can think of, we could forward them to Jim and I, and we can forward them to, because that's the point where they're looking at right now and thinking, okay, if we did look at alternative sites, this is it, because we realize we have to, do that and do our due diligence on that front. And then we're just sort of plugging away on that front. So that's the next part of it. And then they're going to be working, the next phase is looking at the possibility of rehab. And is that a possibility, or, is the recommendation going to be full rebuild for that project? So
The Greenfield project, yeah.
I think they're visiting another school tomorrow in Millis, too. So we looked at 3 so far. And then the next one is this other school in Millis, so getting some ideas about what design components they want to have in the project.
Okay. Through the chair, what's the reimbursement, not the reimbursement, I guess the match?
I think it's about 48%. Yeah.
40.
Okay. Moving on, licensing. One-day license for Millward Brewing Company.
Not sure if anybody's here. Okay.
Where are they? Gonna find out in a minute.
Thank you for having us. We've been invited to serve beer at the Great Roads Kitchens, a little festival type of thing. And so we're here to try to get the one-day license.
Yeah, that's at that Theo's.
Theo's
Garden
Market,
Lot.
yep. The farms.
You're aware of it?
Formerly known as Springdale?
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to look at the back. I assume there's no issues with anybody.
No.
Okay.
No issues.
I had a question. Where are you located? Your actual business?
Our brewery is in Tingsboro.
Okay, you want to plug it, go right ahead.
45 Middlesex Road?
Okay, no, that's good.
Do you have a tap room?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, there you go. Go visit it.
That's good.
Ready for motion. Move that the select board vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 14, to issue a special license, also known as a one-day liquor license, to Roberta Millward of Millward Brewing Company, DBA Modest Roots Brewing Company, for wine and malt beverages for a community event on Tuesday, June 25th, 2024, between the hours of 5:30 p.m. and 8 p.m. at Theo's Market Garden located at 571 Gray Road.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
That's tomorrow, all right?
Yeah.
Just
That's a retirement's been good to him.
Thank you.
If you could wait just for a minute, we can sign, because I believe you've already paid. So,
Okay. You want me to sign it?
No, we're gonna sign it and
they're
give you the
gonna sign
license.
and give you the license.
Oh, okay.
Select board discussions on the HCA.
Okay, I will have to recuse myself for this.
Let's sign this first, Matthew.
Yeah, I was going to go grab it.
Ryan, relative to the Shaker Lane, do we know what size parcel would be necessary for the school?
I think that's something that the designers is looking at, and then, of course, seeing whether or not the Wickham site would be suitable for it.
Then you have a campus right down behind us where you'd have 3 schools.
Right,
High school,
that's
yeah.
what they'd be, and then, of course, looking at all the other elements of that, which is
just make sure it's all set.
Yep, thank you. The other elements of that, which, the egress, ingress, and setbacks, that kind of thing as well. So, all right, Ms. Wilmot, you're all set.
It could be on our town sewer, right? If it's there. It's not.
Good luck. Okay, so we have the 4 HCA's in front of us. These are basically updated according to the latest from the CCC.
Correct.
There, as a further, we got from town council on Friday, the social justice policies for the HCA's going forward. It was too late to have it for this meeting, so we'll present them at our next meeting and probably vote them for the following meeting. So,
and I think, Mark, too, the grading matrix as well for new
yeah.
applications that
Right.
kind of ties into that as
so,
well.
That's the big, yeah.
so. Does anyone have any comments on the HCA's that we have in front of us?
It's pretty much a boilerplate based on what the states kind of said.
Yeah, a couple
You
of-
can do, yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know why the dates are all different? They expire on different dates. It doesn't,
It's based upon their operations, right? When they,
I think so.
5-year HCA, and it's based upon their start
When
dates.
they-
some of them are 8 years from now, and some of them are 5 years from now, and some of them seem to be completely random dates.
And I don't know, but, I don't think it matters materially.
Then we could put something subject to, just clarification from either town council.
Yeah, I guess it's a good question to find out if we can get them all locked into the same dates, it'd be great, but there must be a reason, obviously.
So the only other question I had on the HCA's is, community has an HCA, or their HCA also allows them for grow, but they don't actually have a permit for grow, right? So we're allowed to issue as many HCA's as we want. I know the planning board's talking about a bylaw restricting the number of grows, but these two aren't in conflict, even if they have the HCA, if the numbers go down at town meeting vote, they still have the right, if one became available, they just can't do anything with it because there aren't any more available. Is that?
I think that's a town council question, but any of these HCA's do not ensure anybody the
Yes.
ability to operate.
Right.
They have to go through the planning board process.
Right, but we can issue as many HCA's as we
Correct.
would like. So even though community has the HCA to grow, that doesn't mean they can, right?
Correct,
Because they don't have a permit to,
correct.
or a license.
Do they not have the,
No, they don't have,
they withdrew it?
they withdrew
Okay,
it.
yeah. I know they had it scheduled, but yeah, so I think that, it's kind of similar to the 245 Foster Street. If they had something in place prior to the bylaw changing, they would have the right to do it, but if Collective does not have something in place,
Yeah.
for us.
Well,
voting on
even,
this.
I mean, the HCA doesn't change what they can do because it still has to go through the permit and the licensing.
That's
so.
right.
CCC, yeah.
Does anyone have any other comments on the HCA's?
No, it's pretty
It
straightforward.
was really a cleanup. I'm glad the state didn't push the cart so far in front of the horse that we got ourselves into some tough situations, but I think they definitely have come a long way since our vote 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
I think town council's done a great job kind of
Yeah.
shepherding us through this and staying very much abreast of what's going on at the state level.
Without a strong structure from the state until this year. So.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Move that the select board vote to approve the updated host community agreements, HCA's, with the following companies: Community Care Collective, MRM Industries LLC, G7 Labs, Sanctuary Medicinals.
Second.
Moved by Karen, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And like I said, the social justice one will be coming next month.
Good.
And then after that, we can entertain new HCA's. Board appointments. So we have, I believe, 7 of them.
It's actually, I think we went back and took out the constables because that is an appointment by the police chief and with a recommendation to the select board. So we corrected that and it's just the 4. You have
Just
to
the 4?
report today.
Okay.
Okay, move that the select board vote to approve the slate of appointments as amended in the table below.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, seconded by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Nagog Hill Orchard discussions and next steps. Do you want to start, Matthew?
Sure. So I guess a couple things. Mark and I had a conversation with Jenny Merrill, and she provided some options on different approaches that we could take and what permissions we needed for a lease, for a right to farm agreement, for a, there was a, the third one was, sorry, give me 1 second. Creating a unique program via a special act, which seems like a long shot to me, but is a possibility. The other item that we should discuss tonight is the mission of the working group. I think we discussed it briefly at our last meeting, but the whole board wasn't here. So we decided that we wanted to have a little bit more conversation. I think that the working group's opinion is that they have done the work and created the recommendation, and that recommendation stands, that they're interested in. They believe that selling the orchard is still the best approach. The approach that I am trying to move forward is to educate the residents and engage in some input via MAPC public sessions, and bring the proposal to sell back to the town in the fall. I don't know, we have an orchard meeting tomorrow or Wednesday night, I believe. I don't know which of the members will continue to serve on that working group. I believe that they will assist us during the public input sessions, but I'm not sure that they are going to continue to serve on the working group. They feel that they've done their job and that there isn't more to do. So those are the 2 topics I think we should discuss briefly, or discuss tonight.
So, so on the meeting with Jenny, we talked about, there's 3 possibilities. We can continue with the selling, we can lease, or we can enter into a management agreement. The management agreement means that we can either, it's the lease agreement, they're required to basically pay real estate taxes on it. The management agreement, we can either pay them or they can pay us, depending on how it goes. So we can actually enter in a management agreement now with a farmer to go and mow the fields, for example, right? Or the management agreement has restrictions, though, as far as the buildings are concerned. It's really hard to enter a management agreement on the buildings. We can enter a management agreement on the fields, but not the buildings. Those have to be lease or sale options. So,
And I believe that both the lease and the management agreement would require an RFP and the bid process.
yes.
So we could make the RFP simple, and I think if this board chooses to lease, we would try to make that RFP very simple, the next one that we go out with. But it would require, both of those options would require one. So I'm not sure that it would be very quick. It's not something that we can probably get someone in to say, for example, do the haying this year.
Yeah.
Who pays the taxes under the management agreement?
They don't have to pay taxes under the management agreement necessarily, because
Okay.
it's the town property.
Okay.
I mean, my stance on it, you are on a slippery slope when we're talking about a sale, and I know you kind of been behind that in the working group. That was what they came to, I guess. But I'm still stuck in a town meeting voting it down, and I think it's our duty to push forward as much as we can for the lease and the management of it, if that's the other option. I just, because we lose 6 months if we come to a November vote. And I know you're saying that, well, it was so close and everything, but it also could go the other way very quickly. More people come out to say, I don't want to sell this property. And I want to stay away from that. I want to stick with the charge out of town meeting, which was, we're keeping the orchard. I said that, right out of the gate. That's where I stand on it. And what that looks like financially. So I'm more behind the RFP process, getting creative with leasing, managing, the tree cutting to create whatever we have to do to get that farm into a manageable place to make it attractive for a leaser later on, a true leaser that wants to do something with an orchard, whether it's 25% of what it is now, 20%, and the rest becomes, just a great piece of land that the town owns, and when we're farming 20% of it or whatever we're farming.
So let me push back on that a little bit. So I think that the vote was not necessarily repudiation of sale. It was, we don't want to give the select board permission to sell it. The second thing is that the MBTA zoning took 3 tries to pass, and we continue to go back to the well to try it over and over because it was going to save because it was going to, well, sure, but because it was going to save the town money. And that ties into the next item, which is, well, 2 things. I don't believe that you're going to get any, you're not going to get this existing working group to help with an RFP or lease. They don't think it's the right solution, and they have gone and tried that so many times that they're not interested in doing it again.
So they under our charge or their charge? I don't understand that logic.
No. So what Matthew's basically saying is, we will be looking for a new working group.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Not that.
Maybe with some members that exist now or some that don't, but
Maybe. I'm not sure an orchard working group is the right mechanism to oversee or a leasing or management process.
Because the mission of the working group was to determine the best use of the farm.
Right. And we value that, obviously, and a lot of smart people came to that conclusion.
And then another issue is, it's going to be expensive. Like, we can work to work up the cost of a lease, but I think the argument from the working group, which I heard over and over, is, all we're doing is postponing this time when we have to pay, because someone's going to come in and lease it. We're going to be responsible for maintenance of the buildings. We're going to be responsible for equipment, capital improvements, and then the person's going to leave, and we're going to have the orchard, and we're going to have to do the same thing all over again. So it doesn't really solve the long-term problem. I understand the desire to keep it, but the facts on the ground are, where we were 20 years ago when we bought this property, where orchards were and where the town was and where the property was is not where we're at now. And it's not the same environment, and it doesn't make sense the way it did before. So I understand that there's some sentiment to keep it, and it's very valuable to people, and that's the way it was before. Yeah. But it's not a...
I agree on the orchard side to run that the way it was, for certain, 100%.
Yeah.
It's not viable. But knowing what you can do with it, outside of that, it was a beautifully run orchard for a period of time. So we know that it can be done, and it was managed properly and everything else. It was a failure of town management, basically, the board at that time, over a period of a lot of years, to really understand what we were into, right? I think when I look back at that, the first lease that was signed, it was horrible. It was just a horrible document. So it's one of those things that I'm looking at. Yes, the hardest thing to do in this situation is to keep the property and to lease it right or get it managed. And that's the hard thing to do. But it doesn't mean it's the wrong thing to do. So it doesn't. This is my opinion. I know you guys, you very different. We have all different opinions somewhat on it. But
so just Ryan, you had some figures for how much it was cost for tree removal, I think.
Well, yeah. Maybe I just wait to the end to at least just give you a little update on some of the other tasks. But right now I'm still working on that, so I would be remiss to share that publicly.
So I'm going to push back a little bit on it's the hard thing to do. I mean, that's not why we're pushing. That's not why. It's not because everyone's stomping their feet and going, I don't want to do the hard thing. We're looking at this and saying, I don't want to do the financially disastrous thing. I want to do the right thing by the agricultural preservation restriction that we signed and agreed to. So it's a lot more than it's hard. It's fiscal responsibility, and it's understanding what towns are made to do and what they're not made to do. This town does not have the resources to run a farm, any farm, efficiently. This isn't where in my opinion, this is not where our money should be. We should not be in the farming business.
I think it's bad.
We're in the education business. We're in the, public service business. We're not in the farming business.
We are very good land stewards.
Yes.
So
And if this were conservation
I'm looking at it
land,
more as a piece
100%.
of land. But even the agricultural part, we're not talking about 100% agriculture of the land. He used every piece of that land to put a tree in, to grow an apple. He really did.
Yeah, because it's commercial.
Which
Yeah.
probably was a poor decision, right?
I think at the time it wasn't.
I don't know.
Because commercial
Sure.
orchards were viable, but now you can get an apple from Peru cheaper than you get an apple
I know.
from Leominster.
I know, I just see, I think of, Mr. Foltz, I guess, when he stood up. What kind of craziness is it that we're just going to, we sit here talk about getting land, to preserve land, and we just the thought of.
But this wasn't-
Conservation is not agriculture. It's this is important. This is an important distinction.
Yeah.
We can buy conservation land and let it alone, and it's great for the town. We cannot buy agricultural land and let it alone. We did that, and look at it. It's actively declining. We are failing that property. The buildings are falling apart. The invasives are moving in, like disease is spreading. We are actively making it worse by not farming it. And not to mention the legal requirements that we have. So that's a completely spurious argument that we're not doing right somehow because we're trying to sell this land. Selling it, in the opinion of the working group, is the best thing for the town and the best thing for that farm.
I guess I just have a different opinion on that
That's
piece of
fine,
land.
but,
Reduce it to what we have to reduce it to. Make it attractive to, it's just not an attractive property now. And that is going to cost money. We know it's going to cost money. And that's what we should be putting in front of the town, is that, what that cost is, right?
Yep.
And I know Ryan might have some of those details, but I don't know, we can talk ourselves into anything, but I still would like to get it in front of voters to say, here's what it's going to cost us, and not being frivolous, getting smart people in a room and saying, okay, there's, how many acres is the property right now?
There's like 50 acres of apple.
48 acres.
So 48
in the
acres,
APR.
knowing that how many acres has to be farmed?
Like half of it, so 25,
Half of
24,
it.
25.
And it has to produce $500 gross and 50 cents an acre, something ridiculous. So that's not the issue, right?
No, yeah, making money.
Because anyone would write a check for $1,000. to
Meeting
keep
the
that
legal
resource.
requirements might not be the issue.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it's, I just, for this board, we have some tough decisions, I know, and you guys, there's a lot of work that's gone into this already. I just, for some reason, feel that there's still value and a chance to save a huge piece of property that has a wonderful history in town, and we'll get more creative with the management piece and the lease piece first, until we go back to town and say, listen, we couldn't do it.
I think one of the key.
That's all.
I think one of the key words that you used was reduce, and narrowing it down to essentially 25 acres have to be active ag, and based upon the vote, I think our focus right now should be, and I don't know if I'm kind of speaking around everybody here, but I think our focus right now should be, what is the cost for us to maintain 25% of that land as agricultural?
50%, 25 acres.
I'm sorry, 25 acres. Thank you. Keep me honest. And then what can we do with the rest of that land, which good land stewards, in order to make it Littleton Arboretum or whatever the other use could be, which is in some sort of conservation.
Okay. So I don't disagree with either of your sides, right? And I think we could do something with the land and make it something, if we removing the trees, from the land, it's a couple $1,000s per acre. Even if it's $10,000 per acre, it's a $500,000, it's a one-time expense, right? That house is a $500,000 expense easily to get it livable. right? And that's the gift that's going to keep giving, because even if we're leasing it, we're going to be responsible for maintaining the structure of the house, right? And that one's going to be costly for the next 20 years, you know, while we're doing the lease. The land is not. We remove all the trees, they're gone, it's a hayfield, right? We don't
Removing the
have to
trees
pay-
actually does increase the value, frankly, right now.
Right, and it's a one-time known cost.
Yeah.
The house is much more expensive to deal with, and the barn is somewhere in the middle.
Can we talk about them separately then? I mean, they are separate.
We can, yeah, right now,
We
they're,
should be talking about them
they're
separately.
completely distinct.
And I don't think, just to play, I don't think a lease agreement, it will work. I think you will have to enter a management agreement with someone where maybe we're even paying them to remove the trees and start farming for a couple years, and maybe if we sign, so when we talked to Jenny, we could sign a 3 or 5 year management agreement without town meeting approval. Anything longer than that.
Up to 3 years.
Longer than that required town meeting approval, right? So we can go to town meeting and ask for general blanket signing those agreements. We could be paying someone to take out the trees for years, and then they pay us, you know, so it ends up being a net zero basically over the course of the agreement. We could do something like that, but then the house and the barn are still separate, and we have to figure out what to do with them.
Right, but that is a plan,
Right.
which would improve the land.
Right.
And
Make it
the
more
value of the
attractive.
land, make it more attractive.
To
yes.
lease it.
Yeah,
You know, if we
so-
start with the management piece, that's where I was kind of going with it. And the cost is significant, and I know that's, you know, I always hear, and I hear it from the town, you know, the town administrator's office too, in certain attorneys say where towns don't make good landlords, well, you know.
Yeah, that's Mark.
But like, I'll go back to, we make great land stewards when we want to, and we can make things happen when we want to. It's just, and the house, you bring up a point, but I look at the house as, okay, let's get the land right. The land now is attractive to somebody, and you could probably then start looking at the lease side and saying, you're gonna have to put some money into the house, or the town will pitch X amount of, you know, $100,000 a year into making this house a better place for a lease. Or this isn't, to me, it's not a sprint. I guess that's what I was able to settle in. I just kind of looked at it as, okay, the worst thing that can happen for me is to say, okay, all the trees are coming down. That's horrible to think about because we grew up with the orchard. But knowing that potentially someone can move in there and put some more trees in there, fruit-bearing trees, and create a more orchard-type situation later on once it was an attractive property, that's something, to me, I can live with. And it wasn't easy, but that's where I'm at. And this is, I know it talks in the face of a lot of, you know, I guess I'll call it professional farmers that came to a determination. But that's just my opinion on the value, to me personally, of that property.
So on the lease, when we were pursuing the lease last year, we were told that when we were doing it, we agreed to basically lease for property taxes, and we couldn't get the agreement signed, and that was going to cost someone roughly $30,000 a year on the property taxes of that place. So if we're asking a farmer to put in $30,000 plus all of the stuff for, you know, being able to remove the trees, it's
not attractive right
a
now.
huge capital investment for someone. And if we're putting up the capital investment, it's substantial money for us too, right? That we'd have to come up with, you know, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if it hits $1 million capital investment to get this going.
And
when you're talking the house and the trees.
I think we can come up with a plan, a realistic plan for what different scenarios and what it would cost. But I do think that a lease is probably not going to happen. We've tried it 3 times now in the last 4 years, and we've gotten exactly one applicant who walked away after spending,
But it's someone that knows they have to come in there and cut all those trees down and work on the house. That's why if we look at it more as a marathon to me, and we show a budget of this, and I know it's going to come from this office. We have a resourcing problem immediately. You know, where do you assign this to, and who's does it create a position that manages something like this? That's another.
So here's one more thing. I'm sorry, just really quick.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the solution I think that it is going to come out of this is the lowest common denominator, which is cut all the trees down and turn it into a giant hayfield.
Temporarily.
Well, no. Why temporarily? Who's gonna come out of that and make it into something different? If we're just entering into a management agreement, we're never going to invest more money. We're never going to have extra money to turn it into something better. Like, the best use of that would be a working farm with livestock and fruit trees and crops and all kinds of stuff and a farm stand. And we are not going to be able to do that as a town. That's only going to happen if it's privatized, I guess.
But it's not going to be able to be privatized until it's improved.
Understood, right? So that's what that was what I started with, which is like, I don't think that the vote was don't sell the orchard. The vote was we don't trust the select board to sell the orchard.
I also think I also don't think we presented that how much it would cost the town to invest in to bring it up.
Correct.
Would you rather sell the orchard, or would you rather we invest X amount of money to bring it up? And I know we haven't defined what that amount is, but it's substantial. And I think if you ask people, you know, are you willing to pay more in your taxes to keep the orchard, an orchard? I'd be surprised if the answer is yes.
Because we need to know.
We don't know. Over the next 20 years, I'm not talking about slamming a sledgehammer over the head in 1 year. I came to that conclusion. If we wanted to, we could.
I think the house is a sledgehammer, though.
But the house is a house.
It's unlivable. If you're wanting a farmer to move in, the farmer.
That's a whole different conversation. Like right now, we don't. That's not even on the table right now.
But it is.
But it is.
Why?
Because if we want to sell it, I mean, that we were just talking about, if we're going to sell it, then X, Y, Z. If we're going to sell it, the opinion of the working farmers in this community is that we need a house.
If you were going to sell it.
Yes.
Well, that's where I'm not on.
No, and I want to come back to something that I really have a major policy issue with here. I'm not happy at all with the idea of taking 23, 24 acres of viable agricultural land out of production, right? It's, by design. Right now it's that way out of neglect and out of whatever you want to call it, mismanagement. But, for us to plan to say, hey, there's 50 acres here and there's farmers and we're in the middle of a farming crisis and the state has created this program because we're in a farming crisis, but we're just, we're going to take our time just so that we can hold on to it so that it's our hayfield and not somebody else's hayfield. I don't see the value in it. And if this town can't come up with the money to hire a grants administrator this year, something that we know is going to, triple its investment, how are we even talking about, paying for somebody to oversee a farm lease? I just don't understand it.
We're treating it like we don't own it right now. We literally own this piece of property right now, and I know that when you talk about the clock ticking with the state,
yep.
The state's probably not in any better position than we are to throw somebody in there and all of a sudden just start farming. They'd have to do all the same stuff we're talking about.
I'm not talking about what we can get away with. I'm talking about, for me, what's right or wrong and what is good public policy. And to me, it is not good public policy for us to take good farming land out of production so that we can continue to hoard it.
But you're talking on like a level of permanency. It's literally to get it to a situation or a place where it can be farmed to become a very viable, expansive farm. I'm talking about
someday maybe by somebody we've never met, but we've met folks who want to buy it tomorrow and put it into production the day after.
I don't see a path from like your vision of the town doing the minimum necessary to get it viable to a fully productive farm that's like, enhances the community.
So can I change it? What is your vision for the house in this plan? We're just going to let it deteriorate? Because we can't put $10,000 into it a year or little money into it and expect that it's going to get better.
No, I guess what I would be saying is the restriction part has nothing to do with the house. That's on.
I agree with that.
So we have a house that you continue to seal the best you can. And yes, if we want to put money into that house, then we do it. But we don't even know, what is that house going to become? Is it going to get hit with a historical restriction? What is the cost that, to pay someone like, Classic Construction to go in there and do something? I don't think those discussions have really been had, and okay, well, that can't be done this year, so we don't, that's not even on the table. Seal this house, let's keep going down this road of making it, getting the land to be farmed by a local farmer, without the trees on it, unfortunately. And then we can start to develop a plan for what the house has to be. I just.
Could we sell the house to help pay for holding on to the land?
We could.
I mean, in your scenario, is that something you would entertain?
You know, I keep hearing, I don't know if it was the committee that came up with this, that a farmer needs a house to live in at the end of the day. So that's kind of, but I do know that the brewer that we almost had in there, the house was more of a bane than
Retail, yeah.
Because we're going to just throw a little retail thing in there. So it's not necessarily a model. But like I said, there's just.
I could see a scenario, to answer your question directly, where we would sell off some piece or all of that parcel that's adjacent to the house, that corner lot, if you will. I could see a scenario with us putting certain restrictions on it so you don't end up getting 20 townhouses in there. But I could see a scenario where that could be sold off, to your point, where that would give us some resources in order to do whatever it is to take care of the 50 acres.
Was it in any worse shape than the Robinson Road house?
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
In what regard? I mean, I've been in that Robinson
just
house.
told us we need to
And it looks,
remediate,
it's going to be beautiful.
It's the mold issue.
From the
The bottom
pipe
two
leaks.
floors, basically, the bottom 2/3 of the house need to be completely gutted back to the studs and rebuilt. Like all the electrical, all of the infrastructure is ruined. Floors, walls.
So if someone did buy it, they may in fact demolish it.
Well, I don't know.
Which wouldn't.
That's why we were talking
Yeah,
about
I
getting
mean,
the preservation.
we're speculating, but.
So that is one thing, the select board does have the right to demolish the house. We can do that without a town meeting vote.
And we could have the fire department have some sort of a training exercise.
If the fire department could actually burn the house with the mold and the asbestos in it, but yes.
So with the orchard group, was that ever even on the table?
We had assumed that when we were pursuing a sale, that the house would be part of the entire parcel, because the barn and the house would be with the farm, and that we would negotiate with the owner to find a way to allow them to rehab the house based on reduction in taxes or some other let, because they wouldn't have to pay prevailing wage and they could do it. And we assumed that someone who's actively farming that land would need not only housing for them, but housing for seasonal labor.
Mark, under a management agreement, if we're still owning it, does whoever's farming that land have to pay prevailing wage still?
That's a good question.
Pay prevailing, well, there'd be.
If they hire folks to help them?
I think that falls under the Orchard in Leominster, because they have a nonprofit that runs it. They're not on prevailing wage.
Okay.
So we have, Church Meadows is another example of land that we actually lease, but really need to be a management agreement. It will be coming up. It's in the same cycle. It's the same type of property. It just doesn't have any structures on it.
Mark, can I just give a general update on some of the other tasks?
Yep.
I should have started with this, but so we were given a list from the working group of things they're looking at. So first thing, DPW continues to cut out there. I think they get out either weekly or every other week in terms of just trying to keep things neat. I was out there last week and things look generally okay in terms of neatness and around the house. As far as the task list goes, it's sort of we're trying to split it up into two things. One is what DPW can do, because some of it was securing certain spaces and posting it. So DPW is doing that. We're meeting with a contractor. Steve's meeting with a contractor to go through the buildings and go through the list in terms of things we're looking to secure, and getting a price off of that or for that. So that's going to happen either tomorrow or the next day. We are separately, as far as the trees themselves, I met on site Thursday with the tree contractor, meeting on Wednesday with another contractor, and another one's following up with me. So the question on the trees is, and these are information you can share with the working group, but also when the vendors were out there, it's like, they were trying to figure out what's the ask. Is the ask to remove all of the trees, remove only the dead trees? So that would be helpful, at least to get that sense. As to
I mean, that really depends on what we end up wanting to do with it. If we decide we want to enter into an agreement for some farmer to create a hayfield, then we want to clear enough space for them to do the hayfield.
I think it was what it would cost per acre. I think that was kind of what the working group spoke to, is what the cost per acre would be to clear the trees, assuming X number of trees in an acre.
Yeah, and then, and they can also do with the, where, it's machinery and manpower as well to give a price on that. So it's just a question of scope, because one of the things we were talking about was the fact that, yes, there are a number of dead trees out there, but that the trees, in terms of how diseases spread is wrong. Actually, it's not.
Around the ground.
No, actually, no. Actually, it's actually through insects that it spreads. So, if you had a dead tree and it was just sitting there, the insects then will leave that dead tree and then go to the next host that's living. So at least from that first visit, what he said was like, we could remove all of the dead trees, but it really only would be for aesthetics, because it's.
That wasn't on the table for us. We weren't even talking about just removing
the dead trees aren't the problem. Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, again, but he's just, we were just discussing different options about it. So if it really is like to look at a price per acre for full removal, that's that's.
I think it's a price per acre, and it's either on grind in place or.
So that was another thing. He didn't recommend grind in place. The recommendation would have to be full removal because of the disease, and it would have to be then taken off site as well. So that was part of the recommendation.
So we were looking for a price per acre for two reasons. One was to clear space for other uses, and the second was that even if some of the trees were still in good shape, they're not commercially viable as orchard trees. So at some point we're going to decide, well, we can keep them for aesthetics, but if someone wants to come in and actually use this as an orchard, they would have to replant with different varieties that are more amenable to harvesting and are more commercially successful.
So with that, then the price would be full removal per acre and getting a price on that. Okay.
Ryan, as I recall, there was also discussion that, the environment varies in terms of, how costly it'll be to remove a tree from here versus down there where it's rocky and you've got to go down a hill. And so, as I recall, we discussed if they needed to break it down by plot or field.
Yeah.
That might also make sense.
And I bring that to their attention. I think that part of it is compared to what the surroundings, sometimes when some of these tree companies are used to, it's actually comparatively easier because they do have some space with the rows, and that they can get smaller vehicles in there, and then some of the machinery is rather robust, so that you'd be talking about a machine that's just ripping the tree up and then cutting it up after that. It's it's really more land clearing at that point, and some of them are some bigger pieces of machinery that we can contract with that can really move quick, actually, but there's still a cost in terms of breaking everything up, getting it into a chipper, and then taking it off site. So, but we can pursue that, and that helps. That's good guidance. So thank you for that.
The other thing I could use help with is MAPC, because I have not gotten a response from them, and I don't know if you have a contact there.
I do.
Okay.
I do. Yeah.
So if you could,
we can do that.
Email them and just CC me. We can start talking about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so have we beat this one, or?
Well, I don't think we
Mission.
have, we're going to meet, the Orchard Working Group is going to meet. I'm pretty confident that I know what the outcome of that meeting is going to be, which is that the sentiment there is, if you want to sell it, we will continue to help try to guide that process to a lesser degree than we have before. But if you want to go for a lease, then you're going to have to, find it. You're going to have to start with someone new, because we've done it and it didn't work, and there's no sense in doing it again.
And I'm going to go right back to
Town of Spoken.
why would you? Yeah, the town of Spoken, and why would you buy it right now the way it looks?
Well, the whole,
If we look at this
purchase.
as a marathon, and we get this property
the-
ready,
Yeah.
we have a different argument. And now the lease, no, my goodness, I've got a clean slate that I can put a farm on and trees and berry bushes and take your pick. And I just think that's kind of what drove me to this. But
I think
that costs money to us, and I fully recognize that.
I think that's a different discussion for a lease than a sale, right? If the trees need removed in order for a sale, that just lowers what the price you're willing to pay for the sale, right? And the town isn't looking to make money off of this, right? We
Right.
already got what we wanted out of it. It's already agriculturally restricted. So we don't have to be making money on the sale, and, and it's their responsibility to satisfy the requirements of the APR, and their responsibility to turn the house into something that's livable for them, rather than our responsibility, which would be true under the other scenarios of a management lease type agreement.
I just sit here and, we're talking about, if you talk, close to $1 million probably in tree removal. Maybe not that much, maybe.
Probably $500,000. I think,
$500,000.
probably.
So
Probably $500,000 in tree removal.
we raised
It's gonna be
$1 million for the library, and how long did it take? I mean, it just,
a year, well, it was several years, actually.
but
It was
I'm
a
just
year
saying,
of-
the
That's a
town,
question for Sarah.
if the town is willing to do something like that even, but we're struggling right now, I think, with a plan, and
But I don't see the grassroots support for the orchard the way that there was for the library. Like, people come out and say, we need to save it, we need to save it, but I have yet to see volunteers or people, showing up and saying, I'm ready to donate money.
Yeah. It's weird though, because talking to the orchardist in Leominster, she says once they went online, they received donations from all across the country. People that just like orchards and they like this type of, they value it, and it.
Start a GoFundMe and see what you get.
I mean, we need someone,
but
someone needs to be the champion of that, right?
I will tell you that the Champions for the Library invested a lot of hours and time in this, right? It was a massive effort, and no one has stepped up to be that champion and invest that effort for the orchard, right?
We get some people that would like to talk, if that's everybody's. I'm not trying to throw a dampen the mood, this is where I'm at.
Rob Brown's 25 Juniper Road. I'm stunned by what I'm hearing. I just want to point out a couple things. The MBTA, which was, an additional vote, you had 16 pages plus in here talking about all of the options, all the research, everything that had been done. You had identified who was recommending it, presentation. I think you gave the presentation, followed by Brian Tarbox, who was allowed additional time to talk about the financial implications to the town if the vote failed again. This one, on the orchard, FinCom didn't even give a perspective on it. They're supposed to, according to financial policies that I'm attending some meetings on. There's not even a reference by FinCom in here. There's no implications with regard to the cost. The people I talk to, I mean, I've got this stuff. Maybe I need to, I've been waiting for this MAPC, waiting for the process. I mean, I've got 60 people in my neighborhood alone who are ready to sign a petition to force a vote on this, to bring it to you guys, and you'll have 35 days. I mean, it's gonna cost $16,500, but the monies, I've attended now a couple of working group sessions. I've listened, I've read the minutes for 3 years. This orchard, when the Mass consultant came in 3 years ago, said, the orchard's gone. I'm stunned by what I'm hearing. Get on with that meeting, because the public was not informed at all by what was written in here with regard to the state of the orchard. They got do you want to vote to sell it, to give it to the select board? So please get on with that education meeting, because I think you're going to find an awful lot of people. Stephen Udi was at the last working group meeting and said, we have a $200,000 reserve. You don't even have enough money in the reserve in order to clear the damaged trees. You've got abutting properties that are now being damaged. You got to get on with this. This is the town. I don't think the town was prepared for this vote. I don't think they were educated for this vote, and it's a real shame. We got to get out of this cycle that we're currently in of having significant town votes that fail to only have another 6 months before we bring them back for another town vote. So thank you.
You know, through you, not necessarily to the speaker, but I would say when we're talking about the MBTA communities, we were on an absolute strict timeline with that. And I would like to leave, I don't think anyone, I'm not gonna say anyone, most people aren't happy that we got forced into having to zone property down at the train station with what we have coming in at King Street. But I think if we had more time with that, we would have made, the town would be able to make better decisions, even though I know it failed in November and it came back in May. The reason why there was so many pages, because it failed, so it makes sense what you're talking about sort of with the orchard. But that property down at the MBTA station, that little sliver of land to the left of the train station, we could have just zoned that and would met the requirement of the MBTA, and that place is never considering building for the next 30 years. They just put in millions of dollars into the structure there. So that was never really truly presented to the town. So I think we can talk about bringing things back to a vote and everything, but even that second go-around, it wasn't truly explained what absolutely could have been done. And I know we held the charrettes and we had a few meetings, but that was never truly the intent, maybe, of how this got pushed forward, the MBTA, but we were also under a completely different timeline.
Mandate.
You know, I'm not going to win the argument about the money on this. Is it going to cost the town money? Yes, but I would rather have that sitting in front of voters than just the up and sale of the property. Would you spend money with a viable plan, with fundraising efforts, the way we do when we really want something in this town? I would, yes, and we're short a champion. And that's unfortunate that we don't have, that there's in a group, there's not a benefactor that stepped forward or someone that do that, but that's
all part of the education too, though, right?
It is.
Yeah, I think, Gary, the
financial
difference
impact.
here is that, for a library, people are pushing for something. And the only really strong voices that we heard were pushing against something. I don't want this. But they weren't saying, I do want that. And I'm willing to, do something about it, right? In
That's
the way
not what
that
I
they
heard.
will about a library. I have
heard
yet to
both.
hear anybody who yelled no loudly say, let me help. I'm going to start a
I'll grant you that. I'll
GoFundMe,
grant you
I'm
that.
going to start a foundation,
Right.
a Nagog Orchard Foundation, and we're going to figure out a way to get tree sponsorships, and we're going to make this happen. We had a community farm. It didn't have enough volunteers to run, and it was what size? What, a fifth the size of Nagog?
It was about 3 acres.
Yeah, so
So I was out 2 years ago when they did the orchard working group hired someone to prune the trees. And then they had volunteers come out to clear the brush. They basically pruned the trees, dropped it in place. 6 people were there. 2 of them were Clancy's. So, and
Thank
I
you,
mean, people
Clancy's.
aren't coming out. And I mean, you can find people aren't volunteering for things in general, then there's, so.
I'm not going to say you guys aren't bringing up viable points, because you are. This is just a part of me that's still stuck on this.
I'm
And
stuck on it too, but you're going to invest at least $1 million to bring this thing up, and what are you willing to give up for that $1 million?
And I'm worried that we're going to go and propose that as an expense to lease it, and the town's going to say, we don't want to spend that money. And then we're like, well, now what? We can't make it attractive to lease, and we can't lease it as it is.
And we can't sell it because we don't have permission for that, so you kind of have to pick one or the other, right? So.
I'm done.
Okay.
Mark 575 Etzel Road. Just 2 questions, basically. If only 25 acres need to be producing under the APR, why can you not just clear 25 acres, at least just 25 acres?
We could.
That's sort of
Okay,
what Gary's
and
proposing.
on the
right?
other part about the house, excuse me, 35 years as a building contractor. I think, has the building inspector ever been involved in the discussions in that house?
Yes.
Okay, because under my previous experience, that house would have to be brought up to code as of today's code. So, the results of that, in my head, not only the building code, the plumbing code, the energy code, extensive amount of work to get that house up to code. That's basically the question. I didn't know, I had never heard of anybody about inspectional services being involved in either the house or the barns. I would think it would be an extreme expense for someone to buy that house to try to refurbish it. Although unless a nice piece of land was given to them with that. And then, like what this gentleman said about having some specific caveats on the sale.
For the use.
Yeah, absolutely. But so is the option of just leasing 25 acres, clearing just 25 acres, leave the rest of it as conservation, clearing 25 acres and then leasing that 25 acres? Because I know a few farmers who would grab that up.
Yeah, so it would still be in agriculture. We wouldn't leave it, but yes, you could, the minimum we could do would be clear 25 acres and lease that as hayfields.
Because I know 2 Christmas tree farmers who are dying for land, for Christmas trees. And they're 6-year investments, whereas fruit trees, they're going, about the same life.
We just lost a major tree farm in Littleton. Somebody lives on that property on Foster Street. So,
but there's a very active tree farm.
I know.
It's both Dunstable and Pepperell, Groton, the whole farm incorporates this town. All 3 towns are incorporated in that farm, and he's dying for more land. Just to farm, just to grow trees, whether it be a cut your own situation or he would harvest the trees and sell them on his spot.
Yeah,
So
we could do that. I mean, that or hay would be an inexpensive and easy way to bring us back into compliance.
And hay is wonderful. Believe me, I see the hay farms around here. But Christmas trees have such an aesthetic. They have such an appeal to the masses. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We didn't hear from any Christmas tree farmers, did we?
No, just the guy in pots.
Just
the guy who was in pots.
We might be tapping you for those names.
Well, okay, if you got to get up for lease, I would actually be one of the first people to apply for one. If that was just 25 acres, forget about all the rest of it. I would be actively seeking with some partners for that lease.
It's good to know, Mark. Thank you. You got to get approval. You got to.
She has a justifiable point.
Sorry.
If I could look at the 25 acres as getting rid of the trees that are diseased and gone, and Christmas trees can be planted anywhere, helter skelter, especially if it's cut your own. Mm-hmm. If they have to be mass cut and shipped, then it has to be pretty much in line. But we planted 1,300 trees this past spring, 2,600 the spring before. So there's a great demand for the space. And this past Christmas was actually a problem because they sold too many trees. So there's an inventory problem for next year's Christmas season.
How long does it take for a tree to grow?
5, 6 years.
They come 3 years old, about this big, and it takes another between 6 and 8, 10 years, depending on this. How tall of a tree do you want? You want a Charlie Brown tree? 2 years. If you want a nice 10, 12-foot tree, 10 to 12 years. Over and above the planting.
You're planting new.
Yeah.
It's about a foot a year.
That way you could take down the dead trees and leave sections of orchard that are in good shape. A friend of mine's an orchardist, and he looked at it and said, these trees are not all dead by any means, not at all. So some could stay, some could be Christmas trees, and some could be bark. Why not?
Mr. Sanders?
George Sanders, 672 Great Road. What a subject. Mr. Chairman, I just want to say, who is really responsible for this piece of property, the orchard?
Would you like
Because,
to
what was that?
be? Would you like to be?
Are you volunteering?
Because I hear over here on my left, more or less information that is coming in and talking about the working committee. And I hear on this side over here about the town and where the town stand and what the town probably could do and possibilities. And I guess that's good, coming from both sides. But somewhere along the line, you got to come to the conclusion, what is it that you want to tell the people in Littleton, and for the people in Littleton to give you the go-ahead? Because you said Steve, who says there's $200,000, or they got just $200,000.
Which you didn't commit that would all be used for the orchard. That's our reserve fund.
No, I'm not talking about committing one way or the other.
Yeah, okay.
I'm just talking about the money.
Right.
What's the amount of money you got there? $200,000 is nothing for this problem
Correct.
that you're talking about
Correct.
here. So the thing is, if you're saying that the town, the people, needs to come up and manage some money based on whatever plan you come up with, and said, this is the plan that we would like to go with. And as Mr. Wilson says, what's the dollar on it? So that's the only way the people are going to know how valuable is this particular piece of land that we have here. People was at the town meeting said no, they did not want to give the selectmen the ultimate authority to sell it, because that was the last that they were going to have any input into whatever would happen to it. So that's why they voted it down. So now you have the opportunity, in my opinion, to sort of kind of take what is this working committee, because I'm hearing people say, you know, I don't work my fingers to the bone, and if you're going to go that way, I'm not going to work these bones. If you're going to go this way, then yes, I will consider continuing to help you to reach that objective if that's the way that we want to go. But I think one of the key things is when the people don't know what you want to do, because when they're sitting at home listening to what you just said here for the last 45 minutes or whatever the case is, it's like, the left says this, the right says this, the left says this, the right says this. What is going on here? Where are we going with this? It's like you, old saying said, spinning your wheels in place and you're not getting anywhere. So I think one of the things, if I was in charge to do something, I would get to this working committee and find out what their commitment is with this orchard. And let them tell us what it is that they think would be best, and which one of you are willing to work for this or work for that. Then you know, at that time, perhaps you can come back to this body and says, okay, this is what we heard. This is what they said they would do. Now, how do we go about to achieve this? If it means that we need to ask taxpayers as a one-time thing to add money so that we will have money to put this in. Naturally, a house, in my opinion, I don't know if you can get any foundation to, trying to think of the name of it there.
This whole Habitat for Humanity?
Sudbury.
To come in and do that house. I don't know if you check that out. That may be a possibility there, where the town would give X dollars and they would come in and do it, as long as you let somebody that's in that category to, you know, buy it or lease it or whatever the case may be. But I think you do have some avenue But I think you just need to come together and find out what are the avenues that you have. And tell the people. That's who you need to tell, is tell the people. Let us determine, do we reach in our pocket and pull out a little money and put it there and say, okay, go with it. I think.
So we do need to kind of decide what we're doing, what we want to give the charge of the Orchard Working Group. And is it to go forward with the property? I mean, we can separate out the house and the barn from the fields, if that's what we choose, and tell them to focus on that, and we're going to come up with another plan for the house. Or we can tell them, because they've been looking at the property holistically, right? But then someone's got to look at, you know, we can't ignore the house. It's, if they're working on the property, someone's got to be looking at that too. So I don't know how we make the whole thing move forward.
And we also have to decide, do we want the working group to continue to try to work on a sale or not?
Yeah. Or, and what a sale means then too, right? Or selling the whole piece or parts of it, or.
Yeah.
So we need to give the working group a direction or a charge.
Yes.
Correct.
Because we did. They gave us their
Feedback,
recommendation.
yeah.
And based on the last meeting that I was at, they were kind of like, well,
Yeah.
we've done what you've asked us to do.
Yep.
Unless there's some other charge, we're done, essentially.
Right.
Which is a lot of hard work, time, effort, energy, a lot of talented people. It'd be tough to let them walk, but to Gary's earlier point, and I've made the point, if there's definitely a feeling about town to bring this back. But to what end? I mean, I think we have to do a good job of educating and letting folks know this is what it's going to cost. To George's point, to previous points, that there's a cost associated with it. We need to educate folks. Like, it's going to cost us X in order to keep this under the town's care, custody, and control.
Right.
But I think we, not necessarily the working group, we, 5 of us, need to determine what next steps we need to take, whether it's pulling off the house and some piece of property and working with the planning board to put some restrictions on it and see what we can get for it, because if we sell that, and we do have some funds that are earmarked, those have to go to the general fund, or would those be able to be earmarked specifically for the orchard if it's being?
A town meeting would have to earmark it probably,
Yeah.
so.
So another challenge.
Yeah, so I mean, we could basically put the working group on pause. I think they wanted to be on pause over the summer anyway, and figure out amongst ourselves what we want to do, but then we just need to figure out how we're going to do it in a timeline, right? Because we don't have a lot of time if you want to get, we can't.
need to take action, essentially.
Yeah, we can't, we can decide we're gonna sell it, or parts of it, which we still probably need permission for, and we could decide we're gonna do something with the rest, which we're gonna need money for, right? But we're gonna have to come to all of those things for fall town meeting, so there's not a whole lot of time, right?
I mean, Karen, you mentioned that there was no Christmas tree farmers that came forward, but I guess, once again, I think because we've got a field with thousands of apple trees to varying degrees sitting on this field, but if it was a blank slate, now you've got, you're looking at it a little differently. Okay, I can plant Christmas trees.
I get that, but
I mean,
mechanically, how do we make that work? Where do we get $200,000, $220,000, $250,000 to clear cut the trees this year?
And also if you're going to use it for commercial purposes, you have to pay taxes.
If we lease it to a Christmas tree farmer, they have to pay
They have
taxes
to pay taxes.
on the piece that they
Right,
are farming.
so-
That's correct.
Unless we're in
Let's
some
cut
sort
it,
of
if
management
it's
agreement.
if it's half the property, let's say it'll be about 15 grand, roughly.
No, it's
That
probably
includes the
not.
house and the.
The house
I'm
is a
assuming that's
huge
understood
portion
by
of
any
it.
farm, I mean,
So
Anyone that-
a management agreement, we have to figure out what the tax, I don't think we have to charge taxes, we have to charge something.
I thought it was, yeah, I thought.
A management
I thought
agreement is
they
different
didn't
than
have to pay
LD.
Well, we
taxes
could,
under
we
a
could
management
actually
agreement,
pay somebody under a management agreement. I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
So we could basically have them, the management agreement could basically, here's 25 acres. Your job is to plant 5 acres of Christmas trees this year and 5 acres next year. In exchange for that, we're giving you free reign of those 5 acres,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah, management agreement, a lot of communities have hockey rinks or golf courses, and they're not in the business of running a hockey rink or a golf course, so they do a management agreement with, they
Yeah.
put it out to bid, and the golf pro bids on the golf course, and now they run it, and they run the restaurant and all that kind of stuff, so I think that's actually what Groton is.
Do we need to have a meeting specifically with this on it? Just another select board meeting with this as the one agenda item somewhere in the next,
Couple weeks?
yeah, I mean, by the end of July, we'd want to have.
I think by the end of July, we need to know what we're doing so that we can make a
A
plan.
couple weeks between now and the end of July, a couple meetings in order to formulate a plan so that we can execute something for town meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm obviously in the minority on the initial thought of the sale, because but there was at least one viable option presented today of what it could be.
Right, but it doesn't
We've
solve
had so many, I mean, all due respect, we've had a lot of people come to us on the side and say, if I could, I would. And, I take you at your word. Yeah, I take you at your word. But
And it doesn't
we
solve the
also
problem of the
have
house.
people who have come and inspected the land and said, I'll buy it tomorrow, and we're not taking them into consideration. So,
Can I come back? I guess the question would be if, and I'm unsure about your answer about leaving, if I took the 25 acres, why would it need to be 5 acres at a time?
We could define, so what I'm saying is we could enter a management agreement with you, for example, and say, here's all 50 acres that have to be in agriculture. As part of the management agreement, we're expecting that you are going to turn 5 acres every year, or 2 acres, or whatever we decide as part of our agreement, into active agriculture. Right?
As an example. It wasn't-
That was just an example.
Yeah.
You could say,
Right.
I'm going to do 25 acres in 1 year, you can plant all the trees, but it was just.
That would be the ideal situation if you.
But we could turn the orchard over to you as is, right? And you're responsible for removing the trees or doing anything. We're not paying you to remove the trees. You're responsible for removing the trees. And your response to us is to turn it into active agriculture.
Okay.
And that's how we're working out this.
So why cannot, if I'm going to be producing 25 acres worth of, so it needs to be $5,000 a year, and how many dollars per acre?
It's small money, like that.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
not the.
so I guess that's my point.
like 5
In
Christmas
25 acres, I could cover the cost easily
Yeah.
on the whole place. So why cannot the remaining, so it's 45 acres total?
Almost 50, it's 48 point
Okay,
something.
so
48.6.
the other 25 acres could not be put into conservation?
No, it will remain agriculture forever, but we only have to have half of it in active use,
Well, so it's just a matter of terminology.
essentially.
Okay, so, I guess without physically walking that whole lot, which I've walked a lot of it on my own, is there a place where you would have in mind that you would mind clear cutting 25 acres?
We're not there yet. I'm sure we could work it out, but I don't think any of us really knows off the top of our heads where we would want to put trees.
Because you would
can't
also,
picture the 25
if you're going to sell.
the orchard has a budget of $0.
Understood.
So any money that we would need to put into it, we would have to try to figure out where it would come from.
So for example, we would lease you the 50 acres, and we're going to say, you're going to turn it into within 5 years, you're going to have 25 acres in Christmas trees. We're not necessarily telling you which 5 acres, right?
25.
Or 25.
Yeah, which acres you're putting in.
Understood.
Yeah.
So
We don't have a roadmap right now.
that's
part
what
of
we're
our
trying to
problem.
get to. So
But somebody would have to know.
So
And somebody would have to map it out, and somebody would have to be keeping track of
It's
it.
pretty much, they're done. they're not going to sell.
Oh, I mean, I don't want to speak for the group. I think that their attitude, their statement is, we were asked for a recommendation.
That's
We made the
understood.
recommendation. We did the research. We came up with a recommendation. The select board followed it. Now that recommendation has basically been failed at town meeting.
So will you be then soliciting for new members?
I don't know. I mean,
We have to wait to see what, if the working group members resign, we have to decide whether we want to continue the working group and solicit new members or not. So,
And then, or just keep it amongst your.
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the mission of the working group was to make a recommendation.
Understood.
So
Understand.
its work is sort of done. In fact, its work is done.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So have we beat this one, or?
I mean, I'm not sure we know what we're gonna, I guess we're gonna talk at the working group meeting on Wednesday. And I'm gonna present this discussion and say that we are, at least in the short term, gonna pause the working group. And so that the select board can decide what we want to pursue, because it sounds like that's what we decided.
I think it would be helpful if you would ask them if, in the event the select board decides to pursue a management agreement, will you stay on the Orchard Working Group?
I can do that.
If we intend to, sell, if we intend to lease?
Yeah.
What would your answer be?
Yep.
That would give us some good information.
Yep.
Okay.
We talked about meeting again. Are we going to meet again?
Outside of our normal schedule.
Yeah.
Next meeting in July is on the 15th?
So the 15th and the 29th right now would be our next two.
Potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
29th.
If we
But then
follow.
29th was as needed.
Have to bring a cake on the 29th.
We could do the 22nd. We could do, I mean, one of the alternate weeks, or we can do a different day, and one of the weeks we already have a meeting. I know that gets crazy, people vacations and stuff, but.
When is the working group meeting? This Wednesday?
Yeah.
Like in 2 days?
So you're talking
so
the
25th, I
26th.
blur, the 26th.
So do we want to meet on the 1st?
Do we need research? Do any of us need to do some research, a little bit more research, what we're trying to
I mean,
get our thoughts together in a week?
I mean, I think having some of the costs from Ryan would be helpful,
Yeah.
but it feels like we're at a philosophical impasse, not necessarily a factual one, right?
I think the numbers do matter.
No, the numbers do matter, right? But I think that's kind of the only data that I think needs to be. I mean, if someone wants to go out and talk to Sholin Farm or find some other model that we might follow and see if there's a way that we can quantify how we can do that, that might be helpful, or, find out how other towns have done it. Because the research that I've done has led me to the understanding that it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, Sholin Farms they did this. They cut down 70% of the orchard, cut down to 20 acres.
Yeah.
Just to get to a manageable thing. And now they've started to bounce back and create other blueberries and other.
What are we doing with how do we get cost numbers for the house and maintaining the barn?
I think we have to go to a contractor and get
We'd have to hire.
get an
consultant to do
estimate.
that, and I'm not sure where they're yet, because again, we have a budget of
Zero. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think you can make a determination on the land without, we can't leave the house out of the conversation. That's my concern, right? Because it's a problem too, right? Yes, we have to actively farm the orchard, but we have to actually do something with the house too, right? It's costing us money and it's deteriorating.
Will we be able to solicit fair market value analyses from realtors?
What current condition? Broker's price opinion, you mean?
Yeah, just opinion of value.
Didn't the Orchard Working Group already put up a number, $2.4 million?
You have to come to the microphone. Jim, what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, I'm just, are you something as simple as a broker's price opinion?
Right, that's not something that would fall into 30B, right? It's something that we could solicit that because.
Well, you could do
That's
it,
pretty
yeah.
short money. I mean, that's under $10,000 to do something like that.
But you're talking about just to get a sense, you could talk to real estate agents.
Right.
And give you a
Right.
We're not
sense
talking
of what
about-
it's
yeah.
on the market, so that.
As is.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right. Or
And then include 3 acres, include the whole parcel that's on the corner, just try to get a feel. We can, any one of us can figure out what it costs per acre in Littleton today.
That is, then you get the other extreme to actually, to determine, and I wouldn't suggest get a contractor in there to give you the prices, you get an architect. That would go through the 3 buildings and actually do that, because there is question, I've heard sometimes that it is historic, I've heard sometimes it's not historic, so it's really.
There is no restriction on it.
There's no restriction on it.
It's not historically protected at this time.
Okay.
So it might be worth getting a realtor through and say, if we sell the house on a 1 acre lot, how much?
The more data we have, I think is gonna help us move forward.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to take that as an action item?
I'll do.
You got it?
Maura Keeler, 75 Etzel Road. Didn't the Orchard Working Group come up with a number that it would take to restore everything, the trees, the house, the barn? Wasn't it $2.4 million? Where did I see that?
That was a back of the envelope ballpark estimate. Like there weren't any hard figures that were attached.
There was wasn't there a whole analysis by a realtor at the time about all the different costs and stuff? There's a whole assessor's formal document online. And they came up with the entire thing was $2.4 million.
Yeah, we had an appraisal of the value as it exists, but we have not ever had anyone come to do an estimate of rehabbing the house.
I see. So that's what you're talking about now?
Yeah.
Okay. Got it. Thanks.
Okay. So do we want to meet on like the 1st, the 8th?
Maybe the 8th would be better because that'll give us a little more time.
Okay.
Works for me.
Yeah, we can set the 8th and then depending, and then reach out to the board and determine whether or not we're ready to meet at that time.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Oh, it's gonna be moved. We were gonna talk about moving the retreat too, so.
Moving the retreat?
Right.
Oh, we need to move the retreat?
Right.
Please.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Next.
I think it's,
computer froze up.
If we're quantifying costs, I would love to hear you guys estimate how much you're spending on just these few task items that we've given you for tonight, and if you have any estimates on what you've spent in the past in terms of hours, I would appreciate that as well. We need to understand what sort of manpower we're looking at, even if it's strictly administrative.
And we know we spent
Again,
20 grand a year mowing it.
Not lawyers, 0.3 hours, but an estimate would be helpful.
Okay. So vote to execute a notice of taking for the Webster property. So this is just a procedural thing.
Housekeeping.
Ready?
Yep.
Move to acquire the Webster property pursuant to the vote on Article 8 of the May 7th, 2024 annual town meeting in the following manner. To approve and execute the order of taking before the board for the Webster property, said property is shown on Assessor's Map R09, Parcel 5, and to instruct Jim Duggan to return the order of taking to Town Council for recording as part of the acquisition of the Webster property, and further to instruct Jim Duggan to issue a notice of taking to Lyle D. Webster and Gretchen O. Webster immediately after the order of taking is recorded.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Town hall hours for Friday, July 5th.
I don't think we should have them. I'm serious.
We shouldn't have them, yeah.
No.
No hours on the 5th. Yeah.
So I think
No
we
hours.
talked
talking about.
Yeah. I think we talked about closing town hall for the 5th. So.
Okay.
But I think that we'll figure out internally about what we're gonna declare it. Because there is the issue that for part-time people wouldn't get paid if it's labeled a certain way, but we'll have that, I'll circle back with that information.
Move that the select board vote to close town hall Friday, July 5th, 2024.
Second?
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You wanted to talk about the retreat moving?
Please, I mean, yeah, if we could move it, I mean, if it's if it's amenable, if you want to do it, if we can do it during the week at some point, Monday through Thursday, during the summertime, that would be, that would be
20th, the
helpful.
21st, I mean. No, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong one.
Well, there's nothing happening on the 5th now.
I said Monday through Thursday.
Can we look to the, that third week in July? The second week in July, obviously, we're doing this meeting again on the 8th, but then we have a meeting on the 15th, our regular meeting.
Yes.
Could we push it, as the 19th work for people? Does,
Wait,
No, not Friday, is that correct?
Correct.
ever?
Ever.
Oh, okay. The 18th work for people?
The week before or after would be better for me, but I could
Okay.
make the 18th work if we had to.
Yeah, I'd rather push it out then, because,
So the 26th, maybe,
The
perhaps, or the
yeah.
25th?
I'm out that,
No? If the 18th is okay, I mean, I'll just have to move something, but if that works for other
do you
people. I can
prefer a
make it.
different day that week, or?
I mean, like Tuesday or Wednesday would be better. So it's the 16th or 17th, but again, like, it's not,
Does the 16th work for people? We're doing this like in the afternoon again, or early
Yes, sir.
evening?
Correct. Yes, please.
Like 2
that's right, I
o'clock?
was looking at evenings.
Sure.
it would, it has to be 3 for me. If we did it on the 16th, 17th, I'm wide open. But
I'm open on the 17th.
17th works for me. After, like, starting at 1:30.
So we're starting at 1 or 2?
Sounds like
2 on the
1.
17th. Does that work for you, Chuck?
1 or 2.
2?
2 on the 17th.
Okay.
2 to 5, or we go?
Yeah.
to the open
Let's
question.
say 2 to 5.
To the question.
Let's say that.
For giggles.
So the retreat's being moved to July 17th at 2 o'clock.
Thank you.
Great.
Do we have obviously, we don't have a location, never mind.
Minutes from June 10th.
No corrections from me.
Nope.
Okay. Move that the select board vote to approve the meeting minutes from the select board meeting on June 10th, 2024.
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye. Move to adjourn?
Second.
Moved by Matthew, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good night, Littleton.